Alright, thank you for watching this video. This is going to be a rant again. I want to keep this video as short as possible, but it's a rant, so, well, I'll just see how long this video will take. Look, I want to talk about backwards thinking in this video. Backwards thinking. There are many articles you can find out there by spiritual leaders, by gurus, and also by cults that talk about backwards thinking. So I'm going to give the definition that I use in this video for the term backwards thinking. Backwards thinking, in this context of this video, means any attitude. It's just one attitude. It's one attitude that has many expressions. It's the attitude of not wanting to examine your expectations. That is backwards thinking. With some, this expresses itself in violence. Some people become violent when an expectation of theirs is frustrated, but they never check those expectations. Other people become avoidant. Some become overly confident, which isn't confidence at all, but which is a type of violence in disguise, just so that people wouldn't dare questioning what they want. And some people, they become quite lazy mentally, that kind of anything goes. And some people, they become so protective of their values, of their boundaries, but if you even suggest that something may not be right with their expectations, man, they are triggered. They'll even kill you if they have the opportunity. Because once they're triggered, they can't hold it in anymore. They lose it. All the frustrations are now poured out, and anyone that's close is in danger. Understand what I'm saying here? Not everyone with backwards thinking has evil intentions, and not everyone with backwards thinking will do you harm. But understand that when you are dealing with people, know who and what you are dealing with. Okay, let me give an illustration now. Let's say now that you're out with some friends. It was whether it was New Year's Eve, or it was some local celebration, or just a birthday party of someone. You had a good time. One of the individuals did not drink any alcohol because he thought someone needs to drive people home. But now you see that that individual is kind of having a breakdown. The individual looks quite tired, and the individual, they're about to collapse, but they can still function, but you see something's wrong. Now, based upon your perception, based upon the facts, you can make the judgment, the sound judgment, that this individual shouldn't drive a car right now, even though he is sober, he didn't drink any drop of alcohol, and he is an experienced driver on the road for many years. You see, in this state, he should not drive. He himself is not aware of it. You can see it. In this case, you know who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with, and you know the conditions of what you're dealing with. And this is very important, because now you can say to that individual, sir or bro, thanks for you remaining sober and want to bring us home, but I see that you're not in a state to do that. We'll call a cab, don't worry about it. And you also I'm calling a cab for you so that you can arrive safe at home. So having sound judgment has nothing to do with condemning people or looking down upon people or hurting people or controlling people. Sound judgment is you evaluating the facts and the context to see what is best. And that's why I'm telling you to evaluate the folks you have around. Not only the people you're involved with, but just the people in general that are in your environment. And I dare to say that often you'll notice that they have this backwards thinking. They have this attitude that they don't evaluate their own expectations. Because this is the norm in the world. People often don't examine their expectations. And I've spoken a lot about that in 2017. And in some videos in the year before that. And if you've been following my channel past year, you would have encountered many videos in which I've made plain to the listeners or the viewers that unexamined expectations can be an open door to the enemy. So why am I talking about this again? Because it's very important. It is if people just don't get it. And I don't blame people, because you learn through repetition. And backwards thinking is really how people in the world think. You will encounter some people out of the world. I'm talking about people that aren't born again. There are some people out of the world that do look further, that don't have backwards thinking, but such people are in a very tiny minority. The rule, the common people don't look beyond. They want things to work out for them in their relationships, in their marriage, at the job, financially. They just want a relieved outcome. They want a relieved routine for things to work out so that they are at ease, and that's it. They don't look beyond anything. And this way of thinking is very dangerous. Let me give an illustration to you, okay? For example, you have, let me think of a name, Randy. I'm just thinking of a name now, Randy. And Randy is a 33-year-old guy, or 34-year-old. Anyway, he's in his early 30s. He has his job, his own apartment, and he's not involved in crime. He doesn't meddle with other people's affairs, so nobody really notices he's around. This guy one day encounters a young man in his early 20s, and this young man asks for his cousin, Jack. And Randy told the young man that he doesn't know where his cousin Jack is. So the guy moved on. Randy arrives at home. His wife asks him about his day, and he tells her about it. Then the wife told him, Randy, why did you tell the young man that you don't know where Jack is? You just spoke to Jack 3 days ago. And then Randy explained, honey, listen, Jack, he is involved with the wrong crowd. He has been involved in criminal activities in his teenage years. He broke in, he robbed people, he did some very nasty stuff. And Jack, his parents were not in the right mind, so he got involved with the wrong crowd because he was easily influenced, because he was traumatized. Now, the traumatized state does not approve what he was involved in, but I can understand he was lured in easily, and he didn't even notice he was involved in so many bad stuff because he couldn't think straight. Jack went into therapy on the command of the judge. The judge forced him into therapy, and well, things go better now with him. He's not involved in crime anymore. He now has a job. He now has a girlfriend also. But understand this, honey. The people he used to hang out with did not change. Jack changed. Jack wants improvement. And he is fighting for improvement now. Those other people that he used to hang out with don't. And here's the thing. Jack, when he was involved in criminal activities in his teenage years, there were people that suffered because of it, that lost stuff. Now such people are still holding resentment and anger towards Jack, even though Jack has already moved on. So it can easily be that that young man that approached me, first of all, how does that young man know that I am the uncle, that I am a relative of Jack? How does he know that? Has he been stalking Jack? Has he been watching me? And it can be that that young man is either a former associate of Jack that wants to lure him back into the negative, or it can be someone who is envious of Jack. Jack is now making progress in life towards improvement, and he wants to know where Jack is to do something to Jack. Or it can be that he is someone that was duped by Jack when Jack was involved in the criminal activities, and now he wants revenge, or he wants to take things out on Jack. So I'm not going to say where Jack is, just like that. We're not living in a closed-off, secured community here. This is the world we're living in, honey. And then his wife told him, yeah, honey, I know, but Randy said, honey, think about it. If you encounter someone out of the blue, a woman, asking for your sister, would you tell her where your sister is? The wife said, well, if I don't trust the individual, then if I have a bad vibe, if I receive a bad vibe from the individual, then I wouldn't do it. And Randy told his wife, honey, some people have a charming, they have a charmed appearance that causes you to feel comfortable around them, but it's deceptive. Look, I've experienced things during my lifetime. You know about it. And let me tell you, people in this world, they seldom really move forward. People talk about moving on so often. When people say moving on, they often mean just forget about what happened, pretend it never happened, and just deal with the present and make the best of it. Or remove to another place and only focus on the present and be in denial of the past and the consequences of the past. That's what people often mean with moving on. That's not really moving on at all. It's seeking relief by repressing and denial knowledge of the past and how it may affect the present. Look, I don't have a doctorate nor a PhD in psychology, but I know how people in this world operate generally. And that man that I encountered, I sensed that something wasn't right with him. Because, okay, honey, let's give an illustration now. Let's say that I told him, oh yeah, I just spoke to my cousin 2 days ago. And let's say he would then pull a gun out to my face and say, okay, then you're going to bring me to him right now. What would I have done then? I mean, you need to think ahead, honey. If you have someone that was involved in the negative, the people you hang out with don't want him or her to depart. Because if that individual leaves the negative, the others that remain in the negative are going to reflect upon themselves, because they see someone else left the negative and they're going to think, what is this? They don't want to be convicted, so they're going to take it out on the one leaving the negative. And it doesn't only apply to criminal activities. If you had friends that used to go to the club, drunk, causing fights every weekend, that's a form of darkness, and now you don't do that anymore, they're not going to want to be your friends anymore. They may even try to lure you back, or they begin to spread rumors about you because they want to be at ease in their darkness. And they can't be at ease in their darkness if someone successfully left that darkness they're in, because that would imply that they just don't want to leave. It will reveal a lot on their part, and they don't want that. And look at this. Haven't you noticed that I lowered contact with Jack? Jack used to come here often. 2 years ago. I lowered contact with Jack. I'm on good terms with him, he's on good terms with me, but I'm keeping at a distance. You know why? Because that Jack, my cousin, he has a lot of people that want to do things to him. They're obsessed with him, wanting to beat him up and all of that. If they see Jack often around me, I will be in the picture also. And once they can't get Jack, they'll approach me. Why do you think that young man approached me? To know where Jack is. Because he saw Jack with me. So, you get what I'm saying? So now the wife said, oh, okay, honey, I understand. Okay, that was the parable. That was the example. In this example, you can clearly see, if you listen carefully, that the wife had backwards thinking. The wife didn't think. Let me say this, she didn't look beyond. She was a bit naive. And let me make this plain. Not all people with backwards thinking are naive. Some are very suspicious, but still backwards thinking because they don't look beyond their own suspicion. They don't look beyond their own they don't look beyond their expectations, really. And let me tell you, folks, backwards thinking can lure you in many troubles that you could have easily avoided if you would have looked beyond. Okay, let me give another illustration, then I'm going to close. I don't want to make these rants too long. Let's say you had, I'm going to use a female example now. You had Jessica. And Jessica received an invitation one day to attend an art exhibition. Because Jessica was interested in art, she and one of her best friends, let me think of a name, Louisa, often went to art exhibitions here and there. So she went to an art exhibition based on an invitation of someone she met at the library. And there she met other people. And those other people were so-called Christians, is how they call themselves, and they held Bible studies. So Jessica thought, great, now you have Christians who are also into art. So one day, Jessica invited Louisa to the meeting. It wasn't a church. It was just people coming together once in a while, twice a week, to have Bible study. And Jessica wanted to have Louisa around because Louisa was more knowledgeable about scripture. Louisa had more knowledge about the spirit world, so Jessica invited her best friends to come. So they went to this Bible study a few times, and they hang out with them, they had fellowship together, and everything seemed to go well. Everything seemed right. But Louisa suddenly noticed that the people there were so oriented on seeking comfort. And she thought, well, these people are from the world. Some of them are recently born again, so you can't be too hard on them. But still, she felt uncomfortable with people being so comfort orientated. Later in the Bible study, a few weeks later, they came with ideas like Christ didn't complete everything. There's still things we need to do. And then Louisa thought, what? They really said something like that? And then Louisa told her best friend, we need to get out of here. Jessica didn't notice anything yet, but Louisa told her, Jessica, we need to get out of here. So they got out. Once they stopped going, the people of that Bible study began to stalk them on WhatsApp, on social media, and all of that. So they even stopped. Going to that library. And then Louisa noticed that some of the librarians that worked at that library were also at the Bible study, and also at one of their fellowship meetings where they had a barbecue. It's then that Louisa figured out what was going on. There were people at that library that worked over there that noticed them coming to the library often. And some of them were listening to them while they weren't aware of it, and here they were talking about the Bible and about art. And those cult members informed their cult leaders about Louisa and Jessica, and they came up with a plan to lure them into the cult. Louisa, in this example, looked beyond. And because she looked beyond, she noticed something didn't add up, and she left. Jessica wasn't aware of anything. Jessica only looked at the picture that was presented onto her. She didn't even evaluate the picture in its entirety. And that's also something that's common with people in the world. They look at the picture, the first impression they get. And I'm not saying the first impression has to be wrong, but the first impression is a reflection of your expectations. For example, let's say that you have a guy that appears for you in a suit, a very suit. I'm losing street language now, forgive me, but just for the expression's sake, I'm doing it. And that suit is it looks so expensive. And the guy speaks high vocabulary. You've been conditioned by society to view people in suits in formal clothing as respectable, as people that are important. That's how you've been conditioned. So you see a guy like that. It affects how you treat him, how you relate to him. Let's say that same guy appeared in a jeans that was a bit broken at the knee, with a shirt of some metal band, with some energy drink in his hand. You would treat him and relate to him differently based upon your first impression, but your first impression is based upon your conditioning. And a lot of people, they're like this. They look at the picture presented onto them, and they relate to the picture based upon what that picture provokes inside of them. But they don't look any further. I know of a good example. There was one time, there was someone I knew of, an associate that dressed into, that put on an expensive suit. Well, it appeared expensive. I don't really know if it was that expensive. He claimed it was expensive, but he went to the airport to pick up his son that was returning from holidays. When he arrived at the help desk, they thought he was a security employee on security board, and even told them, "Sir, where's your pass?" And he thought, "Pass? Which pass?" And then the people said, "Well, just come along with us. The meeting has already begun." He was thinking, "What meeting?" But they told him, "Come on," and he was led to some, how do I say it? He was led towards some office. He was just a guy going to pick up his son, and he wanted to impress his son by dressing formally. But the people there, some of the employees thought he was someone important that was too late for a meeting. You see how far this is going? What if it was a scammer or someone with terroristic motives that appeared in a suit like that with a charming attitude? People would have fallen for it. Look, I'm telling you, look beyond. This video has not been organized. I'm spontaneously ranting here, but I hope I get through you now. Look beyond. I'm not telling you to become suspicious and expect demons behind every bush. No. Just remain calm and look beyond. It's very important. First impressions are deceptive. Now, I'm not saying that first impressions cannot be factual. It can be that you had a first impression of someone and that there is, let's say that there is a, I don't know how to say it in English, but there is some truth behind your first impression. It can be that your first impression of someone was that someone was very angry and a bitter individual. And maybe you weren't completely correct about maybe your first impression was completely correct. But maybe there was something behind it that was true. But just don't rely only on your first impression. Look beyond. Your first impression can be practical, it can be handy, but don't hold on to it unconditionally. Okay? That's what I want to say for now. There's a storm raging outside, so probably I'll record more rants later today. Anyway, for now, I agree with Christ and be at peace.